at my engagement party while everyone was inside, raising their glasses to toast what they thought was the happiest day of my life. My sister was outside with her mouth on my fiance's, and I saw them. I saw everything. I wish I could say it was a misunderstanding or that I caught them mid argument, a misread moment. But no, her hands were on him. His fingers were in her hair. And the worst part? They didn't even notice me. I stood there in my own backyard, the woman being celebrated inside for finally finding love, watching that love collapse in silence. You don't scream in moments like that. You don't cry. You disintegrate quietly. My name is Eliza. I was 29, and that night was supposed to be the beginning of forever. Instead, it became the funeral of every illusion I had left about love, family, and loyalty. It didn't start like a horror story. Lucas and I had dated since college. 5 years of memories of dreaming out loud together, of building what I thought was real. He proposed in the most charming way, a secret party, fairy lights, soft music, friends and family hiding behind garden hedges. He stood in front of everyone, told them I was the woman who made him believe in life again, and dropped to one knee. And I said yes. I said yes before I knew that my sister had already said yes to his body. Melissa, my younger sister. 2 years behind me, but always 2 steps ahead when it came to charm, beauty, and the ability to make people bend around her like soft clay. What I didn't know, what nobody told me, was that while I was planning wedding colors and rehearsing my vows in secret, Melissa and Lucas had been rehearsing betrayal in mine. I found out the truth not from confrontation, not from honesty, but from accident. A few bars of reception on my phone, a step outside, and a betrayal playing out like a private movie. I didn't yell. I didn't run toward them. I just stood there and watched. For seconds, maybe minutes. Then I walked away like my bones had turned to glass, got in my car, drove. I don't even remember the hotel I stopped at. I just remember the cold and how heavy my engagement ring felt on my finger. Later that night, I got the text. Melissa, I'm sorry you had to find out like this, but I can't lie anymore. I'm in love with him. No apology, just a confession. Like she'd been holding her breath and now she could finally exhale because I had walked into her secret. She'd been waiting for it to come out. Then Lucas texted me, and I swear I've never read anything more pathetic in my life. He told me he proposed to me because he thought it would kill whatever he felt for Melissa, that I was his solution, not his soulmate. And when it didn't work, when I didn't cure him, he knew he had to follow his heart. His words, "This isn't about you, it's about us. Melissa and me were meant to be." I was just the bridge they walked over to get to each other. I didn't respond. I didn't scream. I didn't break anything. I just sat on that hotel bed and unraveled. You don't heal from something like that in days, but work doesn't care. Bills don't wait. So 4 days later, I returned to my house to pick up my things. And I walked into a scene so grotesque it felt almost laughable. They were all there, my parents, Melissa, Lucas, my aunt, sitting together, drinking tea, waiting for me. It was like I'd walked into a family reunion, except I was the ghost. The afterthought, the person everyone tiptoed around until I finally spoke. When I said I'd come to move out, Lucas cleared his throat like he was announcing a business merger. You don't need to leave, he said. I'm moving in with Melissa. It's time we stopped hiding. He was smiling. So was my mom. I looked at her expecting what anger shock. She said, Sweetheart, we can't change the past, but we can choose the future. And we choose to accept this. That was the moment I realized I didn't just lose a fiancé, I lost my entire family. Melissa looked at me with that same soft, pitying smile. The kind people wear when they're pretending to feel bad but secretly believe they won. She said she wished I hadn't found out this way. That love doesn't ask permission, and that they were meant to be. Then, in front of everyone, she kissed him. And my mother cried. I wasn't supposed to scream. I was supposed to nod, smile, clap, be the bigger person, the supportive sister. the discarded placeholder who was now expected to throw them a bouquet. When I called them out, when I asked how they could act like this wasn't betrayal, wasn't disgusting, they looked offended. My dad told me I was acting like a child, that these things happen, that I should be happy my sister found her soulmate. They asked me to be mature. I packed a bag, walked out again, this time for good. That was 5 years ago. I cut ties, I rebuilt. I made a life that was mine and mine alone. And then 4 days ago, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. My mother, desperate, panicked. Her voice thinner, cracked with something like shame. Melissa and Lucas were in trouble. Business failure, lawsuits, debt collectors. The house was gone. The money vanished. They needed help. And I had money. I had success. I had what they didn't. And for the first time in 5 years that they needed me, she begged me $75,000. That's what she asked for, as if betrayal had an interest rate and now it had matured. But this story isn't about revenge. It's about choice. Because when they finally knelt before me, not in apology, but in desperation, I realized the pain they gave me had built the woman I became. And now I was the only one who could save them. But should I? You'd think when someone burns you alive, they wouldn't show up years later with their hands out expecting you to douse their fire. But I guess people like Melissa and Lucas, they think their charm is fireproof. After my mother's phone call, I didn't respond. I didn't block her yet. I wanted her to know I heard her plea and chose silence, that I stood at the gates she once locked behind me and chose not to open them. But silence to a desperate person sounds like hope. And hope, when stretched thin, turns people into trespassers. It was a Thursday, just past noon. I was still at work reviewing a contract when my phone rang again. This time it wasn't a number I didn't recognize. It was my neighbor, Lydia, 60 something. Sharp eyes, sharper instincts. "There's a couple outside your house," she said. "They've been pounding on the door, shouting your name. I don't like the look in their eyes." And I knew. I didn't even need her to describe them. I left the office without grabbing my things. Barely told anyone where I was going, just drove. My heart was beating in my throat, not out of fear, but fury. How dare they? They had stolen my peace, stolen my love, stolen my family, and now they were trying to steal the calm I had built from scratch. When I pulled up in front of my house, I saw them, Melissa and Lucas, standing on my porch like wolves in charity clothing. Lucas had something in his hand. He was trying to pick the lock. Melissa stood with her arms crossed, scanning the street. I parked without turning the engine off, stepped out of my car like the ground owed me stability. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" I shouted. Lucas dropped the pin. Melissa's eyes widened like she hadn't expected me to show up so soon. "We just want to talk," she said, stepping forward. "You don't get to pick my lock and call it conversation," I snapped, already reaching for my phone. Lucas lunged forward, fast too fast, and slapped it from my hand. It skidded across the driveway. I froze for a second, then stepped back. "Try that again," I warned, "and I'll press charges so hard you'll still be in court when your grandkids are born." Melissa raised her hands. "We're not here to fight. We need your help." My laughter came out sharp bitter. "Is that what this is now?" Help after 5 years of silence. "Please," she said, "just let us explain. We'll stay outside." I folded my arms. "You got 3 minutes. Start talking." Melissa stepped forward. Her voice softened, took on that familiar manipulative tone, like she was the misunderstood sister again. "Mom told me you refused to help," she began. "I get that. I understand you're hurt, but this isn't about the past anymore. It's about survival." I didn't say a word. I let her keep digging. She went on. "We sold the house, the car, everything. I even pawned my jewelry. And we managed to pay off some of the immediate debt. But more is coming. We we might not make it." "Good," I said. "Maybe the universe finally decided to balance the scales." She blinked. "That's cruel." "Cruel." I took a step forward. "You slept with my fiancé. On the night he proposed to me, you had the whole family cover for you. And you think I'm cruel for not giving you a bailout?" Lucas, silent until now, finally stepped in. We didn't come to fight, he said. We came to make a deal. Oh, now we're doing business, I mocked. He reached into his jacket, pulled out a folded sheet of paper. Melissa continued, it's just an agreement, a promise that if we need it again in the future, you'll be there, like family. I stared at her. This wasn't desperation, this was delusion. You want me to sign something, I said. A contract. Are you even hearing yourselves? Lucas unfolded the paper. We just need security. Peace of mind. We're not asking for the full amount now. I held up a hand. Stop. They stopped talking. I bent down, slowly picked up my phone from the driveway. You need to leave, I said, calmly, dangerously calm. Melissa's mask dropped. Her eyes flared. We're your family, she snapped. You owe us this. I owe you nothing. She took a step forward and shoved me. Hard. I stumbled back, caught myself. And for a split second, God help me, I wanted to slap her. But I didn't, because I refused to become what they are. I took a deep breath, stepped back, turned away. Get off my property, I said without looking back. You have 30 seconds before the cops arrive. I got in my car, locked the doors, drove. I didn't look in the rearview mirror. I called the police once I was 3 blocks away. They showed up 20 minutes later. I returned just in time to watch Melissa and Lucas being handcuffed. Would it stick? Maybe not. Maybe it would get reduced. Maybe they'd be out in a day. But I didn't care. For once, they were the ones explaining themselves. They were the ones powerless. And I was done playing victim. That night, I expected my phone to light up. Family members calling from different numbers, guilt-tripping voicemails, tear-stained text messages. But nothing came. Not a sound, which almost scared me more. Had they given up? Or were they just biding their time? Turns out it was the second one. A week later, my parents showed up. No phone call, no warning, just a knock on my door. And for the first time in years, I opened it. They stood there, smaller than I remembered, older. My mother's eyes were swollen. My father didn't meet my gaze. Please, she whispered, can we talk? I let them in. I don't know why. Maybe curiosity. Maybe I needed to hear it. They sat on the couch like strangers. She cried. He spoke. We were wrong, my father said. We backed the wrong person. Melissa and Lucas. They changed, my mother whispered. They've become something else. And after we saw what they did to you outside your home, we couldn't pretend anymore. They said they were sorry. They said they regretted everything. They said they finally saw me, and maybe once those words would have healed me, but not now. Because apologies don't rewind time, and forgiveness doesn't mean you forget. I believe you, I said. I believe that you're sorry, but don't know if I have anything left to give. They nodded, said they understood. My father asked if I'd unblock their number, just so we can stay in touch. I nodded. I unblocked them, and when they left, I sat in silence. Because I didn't feel relief. I didn't feel peace. I felt power. And for the first time in years, I wasn't drowning. I was watching them from the shore, and I didn't feel sorry. Not even a little. I'd like to say that after that visit, after my parents apologized and left quietly, I closed the chapter. That some part of me softened. That the heaviness I'd carried for years melted into something gentler. But that's not what happened. Because even after an apology, silence can feel louder than screams. Days passed, then weeks. No calls, no messages. I watched the door like I expected the next knock to shatter the calm again. But it didn't come. Instead, I lived. And at first, I didn't know how. It's a strange thing rebuilding a life you never planned. I'd once pictured myself as a wife, a mother maybe. I'd imagined dinner tables, shared mortgage payments, anniversaries, where we'd clink glasses over inside jokes. But instead, I had silence, space, and the sound of my own thoughts. And surprisingly, I liked it. It was cleaner than pretending, softer than begging people to stay. It was mine. But peace is a fragile thing, and some people are born to break what they never helped build. About a month after that visit, just as I'd begun to believe the worst was behind me, I got a letter. Not an email, not a text, a letter. Handwritten, on lined paper, the kind kids use in elementary school. There was no return address, but I knew the handwriting. Melissa. It wasn't an apology. It was a warning. She wrote, I know you think you've won. You have the house, the money, the life. But I need you to understand something. Lucas and I didn't do what we did to hurt you. We did it because we were in love. You were just the one standing in the way. I'm sorry it happened the way it did, but if it hadn't, we wouldn't have had a chance to build the life we tried to make. You've made your point now. You've punished us, but this is going too far. My parents have abandoned me. Our business is ruined. Our reputation is garbage, and everyone we know whispers your name when we walk into the room. You don't have to forgive us, but you have to stop. You have to let go. You're not innocent either. You could have helped. You could have chosen to be the bigger person, but you're holding on to a grudge like it's a prize. And if you're not careful, it's going to destroy you too. She ended the letter with a line I'll never forget. Don't let your hate become the only thing you have left. I folded the letter, put it in a drawer, locked it. Because here's the thing, it wasn't hate. It wasn't revenge. It was choice. I chose to protect myself, to stop offering softness to people who carved me open and laughed at the blood. I chose to stand behind my own name instead of propping up people who used it like a stepping stone. But her words stayed with me, not because they were true, but because I realized she still didn't understand. She thought this was about winning. She thought I was playing her game. But I had walked off that field years ago. I didn't reply. I didn't burn the letter. I just let it sit there, one more ghost in a drawer full of memories I didn't visit anymore. Weeks passed. Work picked up. I traveled. I bought a little beach cottage, nothing fancy, just somewhere the noise couldn't follow. I slept with the windows open and woke up to the sound of birds, not betrayal. And then one morning I saw it. A headline. It was a small local business blog, barely a blip. But the title stopped me cold. Former startup owners Melissa H. and Lucas R. declared insolvent amid mounting lawsuits. They were done. Financially, professionally finished. I scrolled through the article. Photos of their shop boarded up. Customer complaints about fraud, unpaid wages, broken promises. One investor quoted anonymously saying, they were charming, slick. But once the money came in, everything collapsed. They didn't know how to lead. They just wanted to be seen. I closed the browser, and I felt nothing. No triumph, no sadness, no glee, just the quiet confirmation that karma doesn't knock loud. It seeps in. Over the next month, my parents called again. I didn't answer. Not out of anger, but because I had nothing left to say. I didn't hate them. I just didn't need them anymore. And I think that's what frightened them most. Eventually, my father sent a voicemail. His voice cracked. He said they were moving out of state, said they understood if I never wanted contact again, but that they'd always think of me, always love me. I listened, deleted it, and let that be the end. Until 3 weeks ago. I was driving home late from a client meeting, tired, head spinning with numbers, and I saw the shape on my porch. A person. At first, I thought it was my neighbor, then maybe someone delivering a package. But as I got closer, I knew. It was Melissa, sitting on the steps. Her face thinner, eyes sunken. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. She stood up when I pulled into the driveway, walked toward my car, hesitant, cautious, like she knew this was her last card. I rolled the window down halfway. Don't, I said. Please, she whispered. Just 5 minutes. I got out. Didn't invite her in. Just stood under the porch light, arms crossed. I lost everything she said. He's gone. Lucas left, took what little we had and disappeared. I said nothing. She swallowed. I have no money, no job, no home. Still, I didn't speak. She looked down, her voice barely audible, and I was wrong about all of it. I thought I was choosing love. I was choosing delusion. She looked back up at me. But you built something, something real. And I admire that. I know I'm the last person who deserves to say this, but I'm proud of you. For the first time in years, I saw something different in her eyes. Not manipulation, not pity, just ruin. Pure, quiet ruin. And for a moment, just a flicker, I felt sorry. Not for what she'd lost, but for the girl she used to be. The sister who once held my hand at night when we were scared of thunderstorms. The one who braided my hair before my first date. The one who once was my best friend. But that version of her was gone. We both knew it. I don't hate you, I said. She blinked. But I don't trust you, and I never will. She nodded slowly. I get it. We stood there in silence. Then she turned, walked down the steps, disappeared into the dark. I haven't seen her since. She disappeared into the dark, and I stood there alone on the porch, listening to the silence her absence left behind. Not just the absence of her footsteps, but the absence of something heavier expectation. For years, every corner of my life had waited on that moment. Not consciously, no. I didn't lie awake imagining her crawling back, or my family knocking down the door to confess their sins. But in the quietest parts of me, the parts that still needed to heal, I think I wanted something to finally finish the sentence that betrayal had started. And that night, it did. Not with closure, but with clarity. She was gone, and I was still standing. I walked back inside, closed the door, and locked it not out of fear, out of habit. A habit I had built when the world taught me how fragile trust could be. I made tea that night, sat in the same spot where I used to cry until I couldn't breathe, and I realized something that felt like revelations. They never took my life. They just paused it. I pressed play again the day I chose silence over begging. There's a misconception about healing that it's loud, that it comes in applause or dramatic breakthroughs, but healing is quiet, boring even. It looks like cooking dinner for yourself without crying. It sounds like sleeping through the night without reliving everything they did. It feels like waking up and not thinking about them first. Healing, I learned, doesn't always come with forgiveness. Sometimes it just comes with release. And that's what I felt. Not forgiveness, not grace, but release. I stopped checking their profiles, what little they hadn't locked down or deleted. I stopped measuring my happiness against their ruin. I no longer needed to prove I was okay, because I was. And when you stop needing witnesses to your recovery, that's when you know you're truly free. Still, something lingered. A kind of echo. Not from Melissa, but from me. The version of me who once believed in fairy tale endings. The version who thought love was enough, who thought family meant unconditional. That girl died the night I saw my sister with my fiancé. But part of me missed her because she loved purely, blindly. She believed people were good by default, that if you gave your heart, it would be held with care. I don't know if I'll ever get her back, but I think I'm okay with that. Because in her place, I built someone who loves intentionally. Not blindly, not out of fear, not to fill some void, but with eyes wide open and boundaries made of steel. I started dating again, carefully. Not because I was searching for a replacement, but because I realized I had rebuilt enough of myself that there was now room for someone new, someone who deserved the healed version, not the bleeding one. And for the first time, I wasn't dating to fix something. I was sharing something already whole. I met someone. His name's Drew. We met at a leadership retreat I almost skipped because I didn't want to make small talk with strangers. But he wasn't small talk. He was grounding, calm in ways I never knew I needed. No fireworks, just warmth. Quiet, steady warmth that didn't ask for more than I had to give. I didn't tell him about Melissa right away. He didn't know about Lucas, or the wedding that never was, or the years of silence I wore like armor. Not at first, but when I did tell him, he didn't flinch. He didn't try to fix it, or minimize it, or give me some overused quote about forgiveness. He just said that must have been heavy. I'm glad you're still here. And for the first time in a very long time, I didn't cry because I believed him. He didn't need me to unpack the whole thing. He just needed to know the weight I'd carried. And he respected it. That's what healing does. It attracts people who don't fear your past, who don't see it as a crack in the foundation, but part of the design. We're not rushing things. We go slow. We spend weekends painting thrifted furniture or reading different books on the same couch. We argue about pizza toppings. We talk about big things in small ways like where we want to live, how we handle conflict, what family really means. And he listens, not to reply, but to hear. I never knew love could feel like that. It doesn't erase what came before, it just builds something beside it, something better. A few weeks ago, my mom emailed me, just a line or two. No manipulation, no requests. Just, I hope you're okay. I think about you every day. Love, Mom. I didn't reply, not because I was angry, because there was nothing more to say. Some things don't need to be fixed, they just need to be left behind. That's what healing really is. Not tying up every loose end, just choosing not to bleed anymore. I still think about Melissa sometimes. I wonder where she is. If she's working, if she's still chasing shortcuts to love, if she's angry that I never looked back. But then I remind myself her story is no longer mine to carry. Let her write her own ending. Mine's already in progress, and it's beautiful. There's a myth people love to tell about how forgiving others is for your own peace, not theirs. They talk about letting go like it's a choice you make once, like dropping a stone into a river and walking away. But real forgiveness, it's heavier than that. It's not letting go. It's learning how to live without needing to hold on. I didn't forgive Melissa because she deserved it. I forgave her because I didn't want her name echoing in the quiet anymore. And maybe that's the difference. Forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. It doesn't mean reunion. It means you stop handing your peace to the people who shattered it in the first place. It had been about 8 months since she last stood on my porch. The letter, the visit, the unraveling of all the bitterness she used to wear like perfume, those things faded. Not because I forgot, but because I didn't need them to define me anymore. I didn't talk about it much. Not to Drew, not to anyone. It wasn't secrecy, it was freedom. Because there's something sacred about a wound that's finally scarred over, you stop needing to explain it. It just becomes part of your skin. But one night while we were cooking, Drew asked me something. It was casual. He was cutting garlic. I was stirring something in the pan. He said, "Do you think you'd ever want to talk to her again?" And for a second, I didn't know who he meant. Then it hit me, Melissa. My hand paused over the stovetop. I tasted the steam, salt, garlic, warmth. And I said quietly, no. He nodded. Didn't press, just reached over and turned the heat down a notch. And that was it. That's what I loved about him. He didn't pry like my past was a puzzle he had to solve in order to love me. He accepted that some chapters are sealed with fire and that you don't have to reopen every wound just because it stopped bleeding. We made dinner, we laughed, we slow danced barefoot on the kitchen tile to an old Nora Jones song. And that night, I realized I wasn't afraid of love anymore. Not because I trusted people blindly again, but because I finally trusted myself to walk away if I needed to. And that more than anything was the difference. A few weeks later, I got an invitation in the mail. Not a wedding, not a party. Just a small cream-colored envelope, no return address. Inside was a folded pamphlet. Women Who Rise, Stories of Recovery, Strength, and Renewal. It was for a local storytelling event, a community forum for women to share how they survived betrayal, divorce, illness, addiction, anything that broke them once and how they rebuilt after. At the bottom in shaky cursive was a small note. You don't know me, but your story saved me. Please come hear mine. I blinked. Then read it again. I had no idea who sent it. No idea what story they meant. I hadn't shared anything publicly. But I felt seen. And maybe that was the strangest part of all. So I went. That night, in a small hall with folding chairs and dim lights, I listened to women who reminded me of every version of myself I had been. A woman who lost everything to her sister's lie. A woman whose mother disowned her when she left an abusive man. A woman who stood at the altar alone. They all spoke like survivors, not because they were strong, but because they had chosen to keep breathing when the air got too thick. And I realized something: we don't just survive betrayal, we become because of it. After the last speaker, we were invited to write something, anything on a slip of paper, and pin it to a wall called the letting go line. Some wrote names, some wrote dates, some wrote poems, prayers, single words. I wrote this: I forgive you, but I'll never sit at your table again. And I pinned it up with shaking hands. Not from fear, but because I meant it. And that kind of honesty, it's a kind of freedom you can't fake. Months passed, seasons changed. I moved in with Drew, a quiet place outside the city where the sky is soft and the air forgets to hurt. We don't talk about the past unless it rises on its own. Sometimes it does, in little waves. Once I told him the name of the hotel I ran to after the engagement night. He held my hand in silence. That was enough. Another time we saw a woman at the grocery store who looked a little like Melissa from behind. I didn't say anything, neither did he, but later that night I cried in the shower. And he just sat on the floor outside the door, said nothing, just waited. And I knew this was home. Not the walls, not the mortgage. Him, the way he didn't flinch, the way he didn't force healing to happen on his timeline. That's the thing people forget about healing. It doesn't always roar, sometimes it whispers. I'm still here. Not long ago, I visited my parents, not because they begged, because I was ready. They'd moved to a small town quiet and green. I hadn't seen them in nearly 3 years. We met at a coffee shop, sat outside where the breeze made it easier to speak. They looked older, not just in skin, but in spirit. Time had humbled them, and loss had thinned their pride. We talked about everything and nothing. They didn't ask for my forgiveness, they just listened. And when I left, my mother stood up, reached for my hand, then stopped. Thank you for coming, she said. I nodded. That was enough. I'm not sure if we'll ever be close again, but we're no longer strangers. And that's something. People ask me sometimes, usually friends who know pieces of what happened, how I moved on. And the answer is this: I stopped trying to go back. There's no version of my life where Melissa didn't betray me, where my family didn't side with her, where Lucas didn't twist love into something disposable. That story happened. It's real. But so is this one. The one I'm writing now, where I wake up in a house filled with laughter, where I choose who gets access to my heart, where forgiveness doesn't mean return, it just means release. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not waiting for justice. I'm not even waiting for peace. I already have it. And that's the ending they never expected. There's a strange kind of silence that follows survival. It's not the silence of emptiness. It's the quiet of knowing. The stillness that comes after the storm when everything you were afraid would break already has. And yet you're still standing. That's where I am now. Not broken, not angry, not waiting for an apology that never came the right way or at the right time. Just here, whole, scarred, but mine. It's funny. Sometimes I think back to that day, the engagement party, the soft glow of the string lights, the clink of champagne glasses, the echo of laughter from people who were toasting a lie. And I don't feel grief anymore. I feel gratitude, not for what they did, but for what I became because of it. If Lucas had stayed, if Melissa had kept her mask on just one more day, if my family had hesitated instead of choosing sides, I might have married him. I might have lived a life built on performance, not peace. I might have spent decades dimming my own light just to feel seen. But they broke it early, and it gave me time. Time to rebuild on solid ground. Time to find a love that didn't need to be proven, just shared. Time to look in the mirror and say without hesitation, I am enough. One day not long ago, Drew asked me, if you could go back to that night, would you want it to end differently? And I paused. Not because I didn't know the answer, but because I wanted to be sure. And then I said no, because that night was the night the false life burned to the ground. And fire, painful as it is, now makes room for something new. He smiled, didn't press further, he never does. Instead, he reached across the table, took my hand, and said something simple. Then I'm grateful for that night, too. It caught me off guard. Not because it was romantic, but because it was true. He wasn't just grateful for who I had become. He was grateful for the fire that shaped me, the ashes I rose from, the silence I carried until I could sing again. Some nights I still dream about her, Melissa. But in the dream, she's not the woman she became. She's the girl from childhood, the one who braided my hair before school, the one who cried when I skinned my knee and made me a bracelet from beads we found in the attic. I don't wake up angry. I wake up, still. sometimes with a tear sliding down. Not for her, for the version of us that might have been. But I don't chase that dream. I let it fade with the morning light. Because not every relationship is meant to last forever. Some are only meant to teach you where your boundaries begin. And now my life is quiet in all the right places. The kind of quiet that's earned. There's music in my kitchen, books stacked on the floor, letters I write but never send, photos I take just for me. I don't measure my worth by who chooses me anymore. I choose me. Every single day, I've learned that the people who hurt you may never understand the damage they caused. And that's okay. Understanding isn't required for healing, only choice is. And I chose peace. Not revenge, not silence, peace. So this is the ending, not the one they scripted, not the one I imagined, but the one I earned. And maybe that's the best kind of ending there is. Not when they apologize, not when they suffer, but when you look around and realize you built something beautiful anyway.